So it looks like we were correct about Jay-Z's little comeback that he had, because now apparently Jay-Z's friends are turning against him. And the video is by Poetic Flacco. So let's see what's going on. Let's get the updates here.
At this point, it's crystal clear that Jay-Z's PR return and that PR interview that was scripted was a complete failure. It had the opposite effect on the public. It didn't make the public see Jay-Z as more human. It actually made us think that Jay-Z is actually worse than we thought, to be honest. Now, I knew that it was over for Jay-Z, and I knew that like Jay-Z's, reign at the top was crumbling and falling when I began to see the very same people that are usually terrified to criticize Jay-Z, when I seen they start speaking up against Jay-Z, when I see they start attacking Jay-Z and going at Jay-Z, that tells me, aha, the reward of criticizing Jay-Z is now greater than whatever risk that comes with not being a friend of Jay-Z. And once the reward outweighs the risk, you're about to see a whole bunch of grifters hop on board the anti-Jay-Z train that we've been on. See, Jay-Z spoke on capitalism, or spoke on like being criticized for being a capitalist. I haven't really heard people criticize Jay-Z for being a capitalist. I heard people criticize Jay-Z for effing people over in business deals and being grimy and being slimy. But Jay-Z spoke on capitalism. And from what he said in regards to capitalism, you had a lot of usual Jay-Z defenders turn on him, and they turn against him.
Yeah, so I wanted you to talk a little bit about this idea of like you said earlier, like the things that you do for the culture, the ways that you put on, the ways that you try to protect and move.
Why'd they get this still shot of him? Why'd they use it?
Forward, but kind of the pushback that you get sometimes about like people throw capitalists at you in a derogatory sense.
Yeah, I think in that verse specifically, the only thing I heard coming up was the American dream until we started being successful. And it was like, wait a minute, you're selling out because you're making money. That was the first thing that was put on musicians. People had this law for the struggling artists. That's a mind game, what we would call back in the day for tricknology. It was like, no, I'm not going for that. Like, no, I make art first. And then I make sure that I'm compensated for my art. I didn't take advantage. I didn't get here by taking advantage of people. I didn't take no one. That's not my reputation. That's not what I do. I didn't get here by taking advantage of people or taking advantage of, the loopholes in the system or some wrinkle in like a capitalist structure. That structure exists, and I just see the world for what it is, not for what I want it to be. I'm a realist, not an ideal. It's not idealistic.
To what Hov said too, he didn't get there by taking advantage of somebody or by finding some loophole and exploiting that.
I disagree.
So that's what I'm saying.
I disagree.
If you look back at his story, he pioneered a lot of that stuff, a lot of the decisions and different things that he was doing.
They started Rockefeller with drug money, right?
Allegedly.
That's not taking advantage of people?
What, being
selling crack to drug addicts in your own community isn't taking advantage of getting.
It was the 80s.
Hold up. What you could deem as taking advantage of somebody else.
Didn't Jay-Z say he sold crack to like one of his family members or his mama or something like that? Or do I have a different rapper in mind?
May look at as survival. So
you survive by taking advantage of people. They're not mutually exclusive.
By supply and demand?
Yes, if you supply,
but that's not what. Yes,
literally. Yes,
I think that's a
that's
way
not
big,
what made you. That's not what made a billionaire, though. That's what I'm saying, though. That's
no, but the fact. So y'all made like 10 arguments. Let me respond to a couple. Of them.
Listen to this. I'm gonna break it and simplify it. If I start a T-shirt line. Right, and I sell $10 T-shirts, and I sell 100 million T-shirts, I'm a billionaire.
If you give me this scenario on a blank canvas, I'll probably lean more towards Ish than Mark Lamont Hill. But I understand what Mark Lamont Hill is saying, and because we're dealing with Jay-Z, you kind of have to add more context to this. Mark Lamont Hill is saying you can't do a podcast talking about, oh, I didn't do this, and this, when the very nature of what you do is that.
I don't have an issue with artists making money off their art. I don't have an issue with people making money or profit. Capitalism isn't the only system where people make money. That's why sometimes when people go, "Hi, you made some money," and you say you don't like capitalism. Well, yeah, there's other social systems where people make money. Like
give me some
socialism. There's still you can still have a profit in socialism, right? So it's not that there's no system where you can't make money. The question is to what extent, and I agree with you. If defining the issue isn't the definition of capitalism, it's the consequences of it. And so I would say, I would ask, somewhat rhetorically, but whatever, right? Like, is there ever been a capitalist system in the world where there hasn't been a huge gap between people who have and people who don't?
I have a question.
Hold on, just let me finish, because y'all said like a lot of things. I just don't want to forget. I'm old. I'm just old. That's all. And then I'll stop here. To the billionaire point, the issue, I'm sure Jay-Z works hard. Jay-Z may work harder than everybody up here. Cool. Let's just. The issue for me isn't that, but that kid, to use your example, in Indonesia, or that kid in Latin America or wherever, is also working hard. And it's not just like an arbitrary U.S. standard of comfort. If you're working for $1 an hour, or if you have to work in a factory at 8 years old instead of going to school, I think most human beings would agree that that's an untenable set of circumstances. The issue with extreme amounts of wealth is that that wealth depends on that kind of system. You sell 100 million t-shirts. It's hard to sell 100 million t-shirts without someone's labor being exploited. It's hard to get $1 billion, maybe not by putting guns to people's heads, but by investing in systems and companies that do those things, whether it's private security companies, whether it's places people that exploit labor. And that's my issue. I'm not saying, because Jay-Z kind of made a straw man argument in that interview where he's like, well, so a millionaire is bad, but 999,000 is good. It's not that. It's not about the individual people. It's about the system. That's my. The system itself doesn't allow for certain outcomes.
Theoretically,
This is where hell may freeze.
Okay, so real quick. So my thoughts on capitalism is I don't think capitalism itself is necessarily bad or evil. Like capitalism itself, the idea of capitalism, the idea of, a form of currency that we all use in exchange in order to keep things rolling or whatever. Really, it just boils down to the love of capital itself, the love of money, and the extent that people go to in order to acquire it. That's where things get fishy. And honestly, I don't really know if I'm able to say that capitalism can even exist without the love of money. So if that's the case, then yeah, maybe capitalism in itself is just inherently bad. But it's really the love of money. It's good to have money, and it's not a problem to want to acquire more. I want more money. So that's why you should like and subscribe. But like, I don't know if the two can be separated necessarily. I lean more on socialism. And if you think about like communism, for instance, I think in a perfect world, kind of, it would be able to work. But with just how humans are and human nature, it's not really possible. It's not possible just with human nature, because you're going to have somebody that is working a really strenuous, difficult, and job that needs high intelligence, like a lot of studying, years of schooling and things like that. And they're not going to want to get paid as much as, the garbage man or whatever. So inherently, it's not communism wouldn't work. So I kind of lean more on just socialism, but I don't think capitalism is just necessarily bad in itself. But for Jay-Z to say he's not a capitalist, that's just a lie. That's just not true. And I haven't heard anybody criticizing him about being a capitalist, but pretty much I don't have much concrete proof because I've never researched this, but I'm almost 100% sure he screwed over plenty of people to get to where he is. I don't think there's a billionaire out there that hasn't screwed over people. To be honest, that's just my opinion. And I don't really look into it too much because I'm pretty sure on that. But, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
It's over, because I can acknowledge that Jay-Z told a lie from the pits of hell when Jay-Z said he didn't F over or exploit people to get to where he's at. That's an absolute lie. We can point to instances of him exploiting people. But I can also agree that capitalism is a flawed system, but it's the most perfect flawed system we have. Until you present me, Mark Lamont Hill, a system that perfectly manages human nature and logistics, then I don't really want to hear a critique of capitalism if there's no better alternative. Now, I say communism, right? Because again, that's like their perfect system they like to point to.
I didn't even know he was going to bring
They
up
claim they're
communism.
socialists, but they only say socialism because it's more acceptable than say you're a communist. But communism don't really take human nature into perspective. All right? Like, how do you get people to choose to go to school for 12 years to become a doctor and they're getting paid the same as somebody who wakes up every day and, I don't know, like clean the roads or take the trash out?
Saying
right?
exactly what
How
I
do you
said.
incentivize that? It can't be, right, a higher standard of living. You can't say, hey, if you become a doctor, even though y'all all got the same wages, we will give you a bigger house. Well, that's no longer communism. That's no longer communism now, because we all have the same quality of life. That's communism, right? So if you go to school for 12 years to be a doctor, hey, bruh, you got to live in the same crib as the trash man. You got to eat the same food as the trash man, bruh. You get the same quality of money as the trash man.
Well, wait, this makes me think, though. So let's say that they tried to do communism, but what if everybody had really big, lavish houses and lived a life of luxury and pretty much got whatever they wanted? That would be better. That would be better. But even still, just due to human nature, people would say, okay, well, they're going to want more. If they're doing more, they're going to want more. So even if everybody had mansions, everybody didn't have to worry about their next meal, everybody had their luxuries, entertainment, freedom, whatever, everything they wanted, inherently in human nature, people are still going to want more. So how would that even work? If you gave everybody everything and there's almost nothing more to be gained unless you want to like rule the world, how would that even work? That's interesting. I imagine that's what heaven is like. It's probably communism in heaven, but I don't know.
Bruh. And God forbid you start saving money a little too well. You start hoarding money a little too well. Hey, bro, we got to come and take away some of that money, bro, because you getting too rich. All right? So, yeah, like that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. And also, too, again, in terms of communism, we have to rely on a perfect leader. All right? How do you put somebody in a position of power and don't expect them, to use their power? So you have to have a perfect leader who don't misuse their power. And then you also have to have a perfect society of people who are absolute go-getters, of people who will wake up every day and try their hardest. And that's not really the society we live in. So in this situation, man, where Mark Lamont Hill is taking this Jay-Z conversation, now trying to flip it to go at, like capitalism, I'm not buying it, bro. And people like Mark Lamont Hill, they will say these things and they would give like ideas, but no real solution, because you can't tell me a better alternative than capitalism. Another person who, for some reason, a lot of people have linked to Roc Nation and Jay-Z. I feel like just by the very virtue of the work he does, people think he's cool, or based on his ideas and ideology and his politics, people just assume he's cool with like Roc Nation. But Van Lathan has never been to a Roc Nation brunch. I've seen him critique Jay-Z in the past, but people do consider like Van Lathan like Roc Nation adjacent for some reason. But Van Lathan had a really interesting perspective on a Jay-Z capitalism comment.
I think the break for me, and just the grand break, is that Jay-Z is saying we in that, but there is no we. What should be being said is I got money. I made it. I did this. Because the pushback on capitalism right now isn't about who made money fairly or who made money ethically. It's about whether or not the system is inherently fair or ethical. And every time I hear somebody talk about this, that is missed. What people are saying is that they're looking around and they're seeing insane income inequality. They're seeing the eroding of living standards for average Americans. They're seeing even sometimes the life expectancy change, right? They're seeing fucked up food. It's seeing declining infrastructure. And they're not saying that Jay-Z isn't working. They're saying this isn't working. They're saying this thing that everyone was told to buy into, and that this would be the saving grace, not of the billionaire class, of the people who are doing fantastic, not of Trump and Hove and Robert Kraft and Michael Rubin. Yeah, it's working for them. What people are saying is it's not working for us. And when we have this conversation, it always gets personalized. It gets personalized by people who go, hey, now that we didn't make the money, now they're telling us that we're bad. We're saying the thing is bad. We're saying the thing is inefficient. We're saying the thing is grotesque. We're saying the thing creates winners and losers. It manufactures that. We're saying the thing that we were told was the saving grace of our American existence it's an illusion. And we're trying to have that conversation even with the people who have been able to make the thing work for them. We're trying to say, you're rich. I might be rich. You might be rich. But we're trying to say everywhere else, there's a tremendous amount of immiseration. There's a tremendous amount of systemic failure. And that systemic failure isn't getting better the more money he makes. That systemic failure isn't getting better the more money the people at the top make. That's not what's happening. And the reason why I connected to what he was saying is because, man, this religion of capitalism, where I come from, it's all niggas have. Like, it's legitimately.
The idea of capitalism.
The idea that you can get rich and change your life for yourself, your entire family, all your generations behind, they get picked. It's so, I wish I had the words. I wish I was better at this. It's like 4-3-40, come with us. 7 feet tall, come with us. Good rapper, come with us. And every time they come along with us, they bring along a little force of people. Their cousin get to go to culinary school. Somebody get to do the video. And then when one of them falls, that entire forest burns the fuck down. But if not for that, my nigga, you gonna eat oodles and noodles for your whole life until you go to Angola and then you. So when we're trying to have a conversation about what we're doing, we're not having a conversation about whether or not somebody should make a lot of money. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is whether or not there should be extreme wealth inequality.
But you can't allow the ability.
He's got a really good point there. And that brings me to think about what I think ideally would work is a society where it's still majority capitalist, and I'm not a finance guru. I don't know everything, but just my idea, and correct me if I'm wrong or flawed in this idea, but if say you have people that do make a lot of money, but just put a cap on it. Just put a cap on it. And a lot of rich people, billionaires, would not like to hear that, but I mean, I personally don't believe any one person needs $1 billion, because that's $1,000 million, if I'm not mistaken. That's $1 billion. Not one person needs $1 billion. And what if we had a system where if you hit $1 billion, then your money starts going towards, maybe it goes to taxes, maybe it goes to some type of fund that just goes out to the people or something like that. Because really, as we all know, if all the billionaires just chipped in and gave a piece of their money to the people, everybody would be able to eat. Everybody will be able to live comfortably. We know this already. And so I think that would be a simple solution to this. But sadly, due to the nature of capitalism and due to human nature itself, we're not going to see that happen, at least not anytime soon that I can see. But that would be my ideal solution to this. But let me know what y'all think. What's your ideal solution?
To create wealth without the ability to hoard the wealth. So why am I creating the wealth? Why am I starting this business if there's a limit and a cap on how much money I can make with this business? Why am I going out of my way working 100 hours a week to get my business off the ground if you're telling me that somebody who works 30 hours a week to get their business off the ground and get their business to a particular height. If I work 100 hours a week, you will still have a cap on how large my business can get. So if I work, let's say 100 hours a week because I want to—
He does have a point there. As far as businesses go, I don't really know. There would have to be some more thought into my little plan that I just came up with.
Scale my business to $100 million. Somebody who's not as ambitious, they only work 30,
Slap the
20
crap
hours a
out
week
that
to
mic.
scale their business to $5 million. Like, you're telling me that I get penalized and I get punished, that if I reach that $100 million, you're telling me that's too much wealth, man. Hey, man, the wealth gap is too great here. You got to get penalized. We need 75% of that, and you can only go back down to 5 million. To me, that's not right, and that's not okay, and there needs to be a better system. I believe maybe a better solution would probably be starting off people, because I do believe, man, that there's probably not that much of a difference between a kid who grew up in the suburbs, went to a public school, had two parents in their life, like never went to bed hungry. I don't feel like there's that much of a difference in terms of how they came out compared to the kid who grew up with millionaire parents. I feel like there is a threshold to where we can figure out, yo, this is the minimum standard to where there's really no difference between the quality of life. For example, if a kid starts off in the projects, like his potential quality of life and what he amounts to be, there's a huge gap between what he turns out to be and what that millionaire kid turns out to be. Opposed to the kid who grew up in the suburbs, parents made about $70,000 each, $140K in the household. There's not that much of a difference between what that millionaire kid achieved and what that kid achieved on average. So we do need to figure out what exactly is that floor and start off every kid on that floor. So rather that's, I don't know, housing, rather
That's a
that's
cool idea.
That's like
Don't know how
free,
it would work, though.
like free school lunch, whatever like the floor is, whether it's free housing, free food, whatever the floor is, start the kids off there, and I promise you, then let nature take its course. Some people are just natural F up, some people are a hard worker, but we shouldn't punish people for working harder. Let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think about this? And if you're still watching this video and you would—
Yeah, he made a good point at the end, like having a better starting floor for people. That's an interesting take on it. And I wonder how that will work. But even then, like really the flaws come down to human nature in all cases, because if you have a starting floor, then people will just, have a kid and just be like, oh, okay, well, the government's just going to start them with this and they're going to give us whatever, free housing or money or whatever for having this kid to get him a good starting floor. But then you're going to have people that will just not even use it for their kid and use it for themselves. And then you'll have people that just won't care. They won't put in any work. They'll just mooch off of it. And there's a bunch of other things that can happen. And all of these scenarios will end up making the system fall. So it's really difficult. And I'm sure plenty of people are thinking way more on this than I am. But that still doesn't get us past the fact that there is an extreme issue. There's extreme flaws in the capitalist system that we have going on now. But in my opinion, I think it would be best to just start with taxing the rich more. Like, if you have so much money that you cannot even possibly spend all of this money within your lifetime, or 2, 3, or maybe even 4 generations below you, you have to give back to society if you want to be in America. And I can see that as being a totally justifiable rule. If you want to be in America, you have to put into America. But we just pride ourselves on being a place where you can build as much as you want and don't have to really give anything. And the fact that the rich are taxed the least amount just through their loopholes and just the way the system is designed, it's totally flawed. But it would be a pretty easy fix to at least help out. It wouldn't be an easy fix to fix it entirely, but we can at least get people to not be starving and not be homeless out here. At least a lot more people can eat or have a house. But I don't really see that coming, especially with the powers that be within our government and stuff like that. I don't see that coming. I don't see that coming at all, but I can hope for it. One can hope. But yeah. So yeah. Jay-Z's comeback didn't work because I don't really feel any different type of way about him. I just feel like he's a billionaire. He be doing billionaire things. I don't know. But let me know what y'all think. Do you think it worked? And also let me know your thoughts on capitalism and, you know, the flawed system and what you think could actually help the system and help the people and, you know, get people to not be homeless, get people to, you know, thrive a little bit. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. Thanks for tuning in. And hit that like and subscribe. It really helps me out. It helps me make more content for y'all and keeps the channel alive. So appreciate y'all and stay blessed.